It's been nearly 5 years since we've seen Dolores Cannon, and we wanted to catch up on the new messages coming through her thousands of hypnotherapy clients regarding the changes that are in motion for humanity, specifically our evolution as a species. What she's being told is that we have two distinctly different outcomes ahead, depending on how we choose to develop our own vibrations. It is so good catching up with you again because the story and the work you've done has progressed quite a lot in the last few years. You have some new books out. You've regressed many, many more people. And what I love about what you're doing is this mosaic of individual experiences that is creating a larger picture of where we're headed as a species and where the earth has headed itself. And Dolores, what I'd like to start with is this whole notion of first the volunteer souls that have come for this time, and then start working through the wave 1, 2, and 3 people that have been born, their jobs and how they're executing it and what their source is.
Okay, because since we worked together, I've done a lot more work and gone into a whole different direction than I was before. And a lot of it is focusing on the new earth that we're moving into. And these times right now with the changing of the vibrations and the frequencies, that everything is different. This is a very exciting time to be alive. But that's one thing that people want me to talk about is the 3 waves of volunteers. We get thousands of emails now since I've done Coast to Coast and Project Camelot saying, I know I am first wave, I am second wave. They're identifying with it because they said for the first time it makes sense to them. Their whole life they have felt something wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And now it begins to make sense as we start giving the, what I want to call, not the symptoms, but the characteristics of the 3 waves. But to know about the 3 waves, I'm not going to have time to go back to the whole beginning.
No.
But it has to do with the ETs and the way they have watched over the earth since it was created, because they're the ones that created us. And the seeding of the planet Earth, and they've been there all through Earth's history watching us and taking care of us. And whenever something was needed in our timeline, they would supply it. Like whenever we needed learn about fire, we learned about agriculture, all of this was brought in at those times. And every time something is supposed to be in our timeline, a new invention or something, they help it to get here. And in the old days, they were thought of as gods and goddesses because they lived among the people to teach them what they were supposed to do. Now they can't do it, so that whenever something is needed, a new idea, a new invention, it has to be in our timeline, it is put into the atmosphere. And then whoever invents it gets it. They don't care who does. And you know, there are many people all over the world working on the same invention at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, this was going along rather smoothly because they said a lot of times they would give us something and we turn around and use it for the wrong reason. And you got to remember, this was a planet, they said, give this beautiful planet a creature with intelligence and free will and see what they do with it.
Yes.
So that's what they've been allowing us to do, these things.
The grand experiment.
And the prime directive is the one on Star Trek of non-interference. You cannot interfere with the development of a civilization. So they've been watching us and observing us. And every time they would give us something, we turn it into a weapon or something like that. And I asked them one time, isn't that interference to give us fire, give us agriculture? And they said no, because that is a gift we give you at one time at your point of development. And then what you do with it is free will. And as we turn it around and use it negative, that's our free will to do that. And I said, well, can't you come back and tell them they're doing it wrong? They said, no, because that is interference. That's what's not allowed. So this brings us up to the 3 waves. Because at the end of World War II, when we dropped the atomic bomb, really got their attention. And if you remember, at the end of World War II is when the big UFO flap began.
Yes.
And we began seeing...
And then the response to it in 1947, Project Blue Book, all these different
all
responses.
All of it started at the end of the war.
Yes, the NSA.
Because they were observing up until then, you know, shaking their heads, here we go through this awful World War II. But it was like we still had to let us keep doing what we were doing. But then we dropped the atomic bomb, and they got down here. They said, we better see what these kids are up to, because they should not have had this power yet. It was not supposed to be given to us until we could use it in the right way. It was supposed to be used positive. Instead, when it was invented as negative for a weapon. And it will never have the energy it was supposed to have because of that. It was supposed to be positive.
Well, could a positive use have been the proper use of it for an energy supply, for example, for nuclear energy supplies around the planet? That's what it was supposed to be.
Yes. But we weren't ready yet to have it because they knew what we would do with it. So we got it too soon. So that's what they were worried about. Now, with the Prime Directive, the only time they can really interfere with a civilization is if it gets to the point that we're going to blow up the world. If that happens, they would have to step in. Because if we were to blow up the world, it would send reverberations not only through our planet, but through the whole solar system, through the galaxies, and through the universes. And it would cause tremendous damage. So you would think one little planet over here isolated in this part of the solar system wouldn't be important.
But we have a multidimensional Earth, which it would have also impacted the other... Please take a drink. It would have also impacted the other dimensions of Earth.
They
and
said
we don't
that also.
stop to think about that, yes. So the reverberations would have been felt wide and far if we had succeeded in this.
It would be as though undeclared war on the other dimensions.
Yes.
Where there are other civilizations are existing. So something like that happened, they would have to come in and stop it. That's the only way they could. So when the atomic bomb began, they were really upset about it because these kids are not going to know how to handle this. And they could very well blow up the world with it because they don't know what to do with it. So there are councils that are over all of these things. There are rules and regulations. Nothing is just by happenstance. Everything has rules and regulations that are put on it. So they go back to the council and they're telling them, oh, we don't know what we're going to do. We can't interfere. So it's like, what are we going to do? They couldn't just come in and say, stop this, because that's interference. So they said they had a meeting with the council. And it was like, we know we can't interfere from the outside. They came up with this plan that I consider to be brilliant. They said, what if we influence from the inside? So that was when they made the call, went out for volunteers to come and help Earth.
So this would have been late 40s, early 50s then, that the first
wave... This
is
where I tried to put dates and years on the 3 waves. My daughter says I might be a little too strict on it because some people tell me they think they are overlapping the ages that I've come up with. But it says to send out for volunteers, I'm sorry, pure souls that have never been to Earth before, have never been contaminated. See, most of Earth, the souls of Earth, are contaminated with karma. Many lives, one after the other, contaminating with karma, having to repeat it again and again, and we're still not working it out.
Not learning.
We're caught on the wheel of karma. So they said they knew we weren't going to be able to do it. We just come through this horrible war. We couldn't take care of ourselves. We can't take care of our own lives because of the repeating of karma. We couldn't do it. So the volunteers were asked to come who had never been on Earth before, never been in a human body. They were not contaminated. They were pure souls who were asked to come. Now, in my work, none of the people I work with know this consciously. It's only found out whenever we do the sessions, it all comes out. Otherwise, they're just confused, troubled people. They don't know what they're doing here. But the first wave, the ones I call the first wave, had the most problem of all. They were the way showers, the beginners that had to come in. Now, when I do sessions now, the only time I have people going into past lives are those who have karma to be repaid. They're not going to past lives anymore. They're either going back to where they were on spaceships, they were living on other planets, living in other dimensions, even living as light beings. They were highly evolved, and they volunteered to come and help the Earth.